Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a little treat for you in the form of an unboxing, or in this case, an unjiffy bagging. We've got a brand new controller for you that is fresh out onto the market. It's a new design that we've not seen before. It's not a rehash of somebody else's, and we think it's going to take a good position in the pixel controller market. So without further ado, let's have a look. So our friends over at Build a Light Show have sent us this. They've sent it to us, we've not bought it, so it's come directly from them. Let's take it out and reveal. Here we go. So this is the brand new Baldrick 8-port controller from Build a Light Show. It's on a nice small footprint, as we can see. It's roughly the same size as the SRX2 receiver. And if I bring a Meanwell out next to it, you can see, there you are, there's a Meanwell for scale. So you can see the size of it. And if I look at that, that will sit nicely on top of there. So brand new 8-port controller. Much like the Falcons, this isn't a player. This is simply a controller. It receives data through the Ethernet input and then outputs it to its 8 pixel ports. So let's run through the components on the board and some of the features and benefits of this controller over some of the others. So first of all, you'll see, even though it's an 8-port controller, we have got dual 30 amp power inputs. Now, each side, the 4 on the right and the 4 on the left, are connected to their respective inputs. And these outputs are fused at 7.5 amps each, meaning you can pull 7.5 times 4 or 30 amps, the same as the input. So you can actually max out the power of an RSP320 or an LRS350 on your 4 ports if you wish to. Now, every other controller that I've met has 5 amp fuses spread across 8 ports, but you're limited by the 30 amp input. So even though you've got 8 times 5 is 40, you could only ever pull 30 because that's the maximum power rating of the input. Not so on this board. We've got 30 amp input, but it's on 4 ports at 7.5 amps, giving us the maximum load possible across these 4. So we've got 2 inputs, 2 sides. Going round, we've got the Build a Light Show logo and a little character there who is our Baldrick. Now, Baldrick is the sidekick to a fantastic TV show from back in the day, and the idea, I think, is that the Baldrick board is the sidekick to your light show. Without it, the whole thing just doesn't gel and work together. We've got a 100 meg Ethernet input. Now this is DDP only. They've dropped the legacy E131 that we're all slowly moving away from, and it's DDP only. So network in. It is wired only, although the processor is capable of wireless. There is no programming for that on the board, so it's wired only, as all proper controllers probably should be in this case. We just don't want the latency and risk of refreshes and buffering and stuff like that on a pixel show. So Ethernet side, we've got the ESP32 processor, which is driving this thing. And it has brand new bespoke firmware that we've not seen before. Although the board can be reflashed to run WLED, it doesn't natively run it. It's not a rehash of WLED, it's a brand new firmware. We have a QR code so that we can get straight to the instructions. If you're out with your phone and you're not sure what you're doing, you can just zap the barcode and it will take you straight to the instructions. We have 3 inputs for buttons. Now these can be configured to power test modes, and also once the show is running, you can extend these out using the connectors here, and they will trigger a URL. So you might have it to trigger an FPP playlist on an off-board controller or something like that. And then we have the power side down here that's going to drive the power to the ESP32. Now, much like the bigger boards, on say an F16, you have to power the right hand side to get power to your logic circuitry, your controller, the chips. With this one, it doesn't care which side you apply power to. You can apply it to the left or the right, and either will power the logic side. So whichever side you want to power, boom, in you go. And on the subject of feeding power, you can feed either 5 or 12 or even 24 volts into either side and it will be happy. It's got no jumpers to shift anything like that. It's all done on board, so feed it between 5 and 24 volts on either or both sides and the board will be happy with that and it will run. So I think that's covered all the features. There's nothing on the back worthy of note. So let's get it plugged in and see what we do with it. Now for this demo, I've got a single RSP32012, which I'm just going to use to plug in both sides. So let's get that hooked up. Let's get you in there. Now, as normal, when I'm talking about power, with 30 amps at 12 volts, I will always recommend 10 AWG or 10 gauge cable. You might get away with lower, but I wouldn't recommend it. There we go. This side is actually 12 gauge because that one's what I had available. And I think this side is as well for this demo. Yeah, both sides in this demo will run in 12 gauge, which is fine for really short runs. But it doesn't give a lot of gap for overhead, so I will go 12 if I can. Sorry, 10 if I can. Here we go. So we've got, much like the Falcons, the 2 connectors are the opposite ways round, so just beware when you're hooking up. So we've got ground on the outside and we have positive 5 through 24 volts on the inside. There we are, we've given it some juice. Let's connect a set of pixels to it. Again, just make sure that you're hooking them up correctly. So I've got ground on the left and that's ground. Yeah, there we go. There we go, we've got a string of pixels. So let's give it some juice. First thing I need to do, Ethernet. Let's give it some Ethernet as well. That always helps, doesn't it? Here we are. Now, as we can see, we have the LEDs indicating the power is on to all of the pixel ports. And if I were to remove a fuse, we can see that the number 8 light has gone out because the fuse has gone. There we go, and that's back on again. So we have fused, we have indicators to show the fusing, and I've actually got one that's gone off here. I don't know what I've just done to it, but fuse number 5 there is out. I will investigate that later. Okay, now at this point you might be unsure as to what to do now. We haven't got an OLED on the board to tell us what's going on with the IP address. We've got it plugged into the network, and I can see that there's activity on the Ethernet. I don't know whether it will focus on that. I can see that there's activity on the Ethernet jack, so we know that that's doing its thing. You can just about make it out there. So how do we proceed? Well, if we'd scanned these instructions, it will tell us to go to our web browser and navigate to baldrickboard.local. Your local router will have assigned it a DHCP IP address, and the DNS name will have been registered, so a machine on the same network should pick that up. So let's have a look. I'm going to go into my browser and type in baldrickboard.local, and there we are. We've come straight up with our browser and we're ready to get started. So the board has been given an IP address. In this case it's on the 192.168.4 network, which is my show and my shed network. What it needs to do is to download the latest firmware, and then we can get going. So I'm going to click Let's Get Started. Now it's imperative at this point that the board has got internet connectivity, because it needs to connect to the servers for the first time to pull the latest firmware. Now, at the time of recording this, there's regular updates coming out to the firmware as the board is brand new. We're getting a couple a week at the moment of updates, but I'm sure that will settle down very quickly as new features and the odd bug or two, as is present on brand new devices, are ironed out. It's nearly finished doing the upgrade now. Here we go, and it's come up. Here we go. We've got the web page for our Baldrick board. Really simple web interface on this. Got all the functionality you need on a single page, so nice and clean and crisp. We can see exactly what's going on. So starting at the top, we've got the statistics element, which is telling us the uptime of the board. In this case, less than a minute, because it just rebooted when we finished uploading the firmware. Current throughputs for frames per second and kilobits per second. So because we're not pushing any pixel data to it at the moment, obviously we've got no throughput. The current temperature of the board, a lovely 16 degrees C. It's not the warmest morning here in the shed. The current firmware release, we're on 1.11 today. And the IP address of the board. Now we're going to need the IP address of the board when we configure our show player to push data to it later on. The next thing we've got is enable test mode, and if I click that, we can pick a preset. Paint it black. Well, yeah, that's turning them off in fancy speak. I like that, paint it black. It's a good tune. Yes, thank you to Mr. Jagger & Co for that one. We have all sorts of other options, pretty rainbow colours, full white, half brightness white, adjust the tip. I'm blue, green, yellow, purple. Oh, very good, a bit of Hendrix as well. And there's another potential update release there. Let me choose a colour. So let's go for full white. And that has not done anything because it applies to all configured models. And as yet, we haven't configured any, so it doesn't know what's there. So I shall turn that off for a second, and we'll go and configure a model. It needs to know, first of all, the DDP start channel. Now, further down the line, they'll obviously have full X-Lights integration. At the moment, they're working on X-Lights. There is a test release that they've pushed for it, but I haven't had a chance to review that yet. So we're just going to stick with a bit of FPP in a minute and DDP. So DDP start channel, I'm going to leave that as 1 because it's the only controller we're going to be playing with today. And then we need to tell it how many pixels on how many ports and what models. So I've plugged into port number 1 and I've got my little string of, I think it's 10 pixels on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pixels. So I'm going to tell it that we've got a new model. So I can click on the port and add a model. I'm going to call it test string. And it's got 10 pixels. And because we're working under the studio lights here, we need them pretty bright, so I'm going to leave them on 100% and save changes. There we are. So that's our first model set up. Now if we had another model daisy chained on the end of this one, we could add a second one. We could add string 2. Can't type, but string 2, and we can say it's another 10 pixels. And where do we want that? Are we going to put it at the end of the chain or at the start of the chain? So it doesn't have to be in physical order, the same as the logical order. We can have it different, but I'm going to put it on the end. And then if we added a third one, we then get the option. Give it another 10 pixels. We then get the option, do we want to add this to the end, again, to the start, or after the first one? So it knows what's already there, and we can choose where to position it, what order we're daisy chaining our props. So I'm going to put it at the end of the chain. There we are. So we've got our 3 strings configured, and there's no save or anything. It's done all that for us already. So quite happy. What we can do now though is to go back to test mode. So let's go for test mode, and it's still got white, and you can see our pixels have lit up straight away, a nice crisp white. Let's do something else, some rainbow colours. There we go. This looks like a Falcon color wash type thing. It's just cycling through the colours. Half brightness white, yep, that's a bit dimmer. I'm blue, oh yeah, not showing very well on the camera there, but it is, yep, they're blue. Green, yellow, beautiful, and purple, very good. So there's all our colours, and black is obviously off. So that's all working nicely. Down the bottom here we've got the Baldrick manual, so we can open that. Does it open in a new window? No, it doesn't. That's annoying. There's one for the devs. Open that in a new window, please, or a new tab. So here's our documentation. Nice and simple. What to do, how to plug it in. Nice, simple, short and concise, and we like that. No waffling. away it goes. Beautiful. And then it talks about the buttons, what they're going to be doing in future, so on. So all very good. There's a link to the European Lighting Fanatics and a link to the Builder Light Show support page if you think you've got some hardware issues. This Baldrick board is brought to you by Builder Light Show. A link to their website. Please do not lick the board. You will notice that there is a certain amount of British humour in here, which is good. We've got to have fun when we're doing this, right? Yeah. So that's on. That's done. We've got our DDP start channel set as 1. Let's go and do a quick configure of some FPP, and we'll push some pixel data out to it. So my FPP instance is on a different network, but that's fine. Here we go. This is actually a dev build that I'm running here on a Pi 5 that I've had sitting ticking along, and it's been working beautifully so far. So we'll go to Input Output Setup, Channel Outputs, and we're going to go to E131 ArtNet DDP, and we're going to set up 1 output. So we'll change that to 1 and turn it on. There we go. Our description, I can call that Baldrick. Our output type is going to be DDP, raw channels. Starting with channel 1, that was the first channel that we said here on the board was DDP start channel 1. I'm just going to grab that IP address while I'm in here. Right, so we've got that. The unicast address, that is the IP address we're going to be sending this DDP data to, which is that of our Baldrick board here. We're going to send it 1 channel. We've got 3 strings of 10 pixels, so that's 30 channels per string, times 3 is 90, so we could say the universe size is 90 there to make it all line up. And then we can save. Now, one of the few features of using Pi 5 on FPP is how fast FPPD restarts. As soon as I click it, boom, it's done it. Bam, there's no waiting around like there is on a 3 or a Pi 3 or 4. So we have our output set up on FPP. I'm going to go to Status Control Display Testing. I'm going to set it to, there we are, it's set itself up for channels 1 to 91 because that is the total number of outputs that are configured. And we can set it to chase RGB and enable test mode. And there we go. Our pixels are doing the RGB test. If we do a cycle of RGB, there we go, they're all going. Beautiful. And we could do simple color tests as well if we wanted to. There's purple. If I get rid of the red, then we go to blue. Turn it off, bit of red. And really nice and swift. It's working really quickly, really fast. Considering my FPP is naughtily on Wi-Fi and it's down at the house, this is working beautifully. I should note that the Pi at the house is pretty much next to the access point, and there's a 10 gig fibre from the house to the shed, so it shouldn't have any problems. Beautiful. That is working lovely. So there we go. That's our output configured in FPP, and we've connected directly to the board. It's working beautifully, apart from this one fuse that I've popped somehow. Happy days. So I think this is going to be a brilliant little board. For the price point that it's coming in at, which is to be confirmed, but it is really not expensive at all. I don't know how they've done it for the price. It's going to be a really cheap board. Cheap's a bad word. Inexpensive, that's a good word. It's going to be a really inexpensive board, capable of pushing 60 amps of juice through. Not a lot more I can say. It's going to be good value. It's UK supplied, UK supported. I believe they're in discussions with distributors across the pond. So watch out for this over there fairly soon. It just does what it says on the tin. Nice and simple. So I hope you found this one useful. Thank you again to Build a Light Show for sending me this development sample. I think you're on a winner here. I really do. So good luck with it, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye for now.